and welcome. This is Brent. Oh wait, I was gonna be dramatic to reveal the spreadsheet, but yeah, we're gonna be doing the spreadsheet today. Hello. This is Brand Smith, live in the Forbidden Library, and today we are going to breed more Pride and Prejudice. We are. But it's a Sunday, and I went on holiday, and that means we need to update the spreadsheet because I read books, therefore things go on the spreadsheet. Hello everyone. Hello Luke. Hello Candy Guy. Hello anyone looking. Hello anyone who votes. Hello. Hello Lighthouse. It's Brian 3D. You can see me fidget now. You can see me pick up my tea. Tea. Hello hand. Tea. Here's the tea. It's a big mug. Ooh, 3D nice of the dress and the classics. Thank you. This was one of the sub-goal dresses that people voted for as an outfit for me for getting so far in the subathon. This was the number one selected outfit. It was very, 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 very cute. I'm good. I am happy to be streaming again after a holiday so much. Like it's nice that like, the holiday's nice and all, but I'm a creature of habit and routine. And it's nice to start streaming again to get part of my routine back after the holiday. Cause it's nice, but I want to be chill. I'm not rating more books, but we're adding them to my total. Because I read 3 books while I was on holiday. Not completely. I will admit that I'd started these books before I went on holiday, but I finished them while I was on holiday, so. Brian, you never said anything about letting you write horror short stories. You never said anything about letting you write horror short stories for you in October. I thought about. I didn't know how many people would actually want to write short stories for October. I know you probably would, Void. But, I mean, anyone else is welcome to. And if we have some, we could do a stream on it. But I'm probably going to pick up Dracula or something like that. There's a lot of old-timey, classic horrors we could do. We could pick up maybe an Edgar Allan Poe selection and things like that. That would be fun. Hello, Jabba Hub, welcome. Let me tell you what I read while I was on holiday. So let me just grab, the first one I finished was called, this is going to be number 156, and it's called, Witch's Guide. That's spelled horrifically wrong. Suggestions, heck yeah, I like suggestions. Witches. Is that how we spell witch? W-I-T-C. No, there's no H in witch. No H in witch. A Witch's Guide to Burning. That's what I read. My grammar is too poor and my storytelling tends to be haphazard, but maybe one of the better creepypastas, like My Brother Died and Kept Talking or whatever that is. That sounds awful. The Infinite and the Divine. I believe I've heard of that one. Is that a horror one or is that a comic? I think I got recommended something similar. Maybe if we have more than one person doing it, you could read them in a compilation on the last Sunday of October. Maybe. It's 40k? Oh, that makes sense. I mean, 40k law is apparently pretty damn good. Now, the thing is, this book is really hard to put as a thing. I'm definitely going to call this one a graphic novel. It's not a comic book, but it's not a novel. Do you know how, like, kids' books, like, the pictures interact with the text? That's what this book did, but it's not a kid's book. It's a novel with lots of pictures in that interact with the text. It's so good, and it's used for the storytelling. I highly recommend picking up a Witch's Guide to Burning. It's by Amanda de Aliwa. And it is standalone. So for once I don't have to track a series. It is very cool. I will be doing a video on it at some point so I can show it off a little bit more. But you go into like the first page and it's just a burnt page. It's like all black and then like a little bit at the top is the prologue, but you can't see it properly because the main character loses their memories of before the first chapter. So therefore the page is burned, which is just, I don't know. That kind of visual storytelling in it was so good. Highly recommend that book and I cannot wait to show you in a video. I will be making that. Branny, I hate witches because of last year. Branny now reads Witch's Guide. Branny, my imagination. Oh no, Mr. Purse Thief. If you try stealing from me, she snaps her fingers and he burns. Now hold up. Big storytelling right there. It is! It's so good. I really recommend looking it up. That's not 56. We're not that far up as 26, not 56. That would be lovely if we were already at that point. So 127th book I read while I was out was They Still Call Me Princess Case. I haven't read it, but I've heard it's good. Ah, yes. They Still Call Me Princess Case, which is a sequel to They Called Me Princess Case. I really like the naming conventions of this whole series. There's They Call Me Princess Case. They Still Call Me Princess Case. I believe the next one is called My Name is Princess Case. And they go on like that. This was a novel. It's a Western isekai. So it's a dude who has been put in the body of a fantasy princess, but they're at war and bad things are happening. And there's lots of like politics and not as much magic as I would like, but I think we're about to get into that in the third book. It's quite funny with the isekai things, like obviously with a lot of Japanese isekai, like you get to the whole magic or things like that pretty fast. And this one it was about like adjusting to the reality in this one and getting yourself safe. Like, it's taken to the end of this book to get her into a safe enough position that she's able to start improving the world. And actually using her, like, isekai knowledge to help stuff. So, series. It takes its sweet time, but also feels like, I don't know, I wanted to go faster, but at the same time, it's, like, very important the way it did. So a dude that said hi to Truck-kun, he doesn't remember if he said hi to Truck-kun, but that's what I choose to believe until it is revealed in story. It does a lot of Princess Case, and I absolutely love the naming convention. It's absolutely wonderful. 128th book was... Let me grab it. Just giving you the noise of the book as I put it down. To be fair, The Witch's Guide to Burning was a similar noise when I put it down. I should give you the noise of that too. That one was hardback, and you can hear it. Guess what, Luke? Guess what? You're amazing. You're cool. Haha! I got that first. I guessed it, but you're also cool. I read Regal. Invincible. Regal Invincible. Which, after reading it, the description on the back of this book is incredibly inaccurate. I bought this at a Comic-Con. I bought this at Liverpool Comic-Con. Because there was a few authors and stuff at Liverpool Comic-Con. I haven't been here in a while, but your models are cute. Oh, thanks, Dog Game. Like I said, this outfit was voted for and paid for by you guys, so thank you very much. Yeah. So the description's very bad on this one. It tells you that this is it is technically correct in that it is the path of a guy who's about to become king. Sure, but it doesn't tell you that this is mostly a drama, a messy drama about this royal family, and only really gets kind of serious about the whole kingy thing near the end. Like, it's not that it's not, but there's so many other things going on with this dramatic-ass family. But it does, like, yeah, sure, the king thing's there, and you know he's gonna get king, but it's so dramatic. And the society in this book is so non-human, which I really like. There's not really any humans in this book. Like, they've got the Outsiders, which is another sort of faction-esque thing. And they're the closest to being, like, normal human. But the people you follow in this book are raised to be absolute psychopaths. So the entire family is mostly these absolute psychopaths. And you are in the brain of one of these absolute psychopaths as you read. And it shows. So it was a very interesting one. I do already have the second one. I do plan on reading that. So I also kind of recommend, not as much as the other two. I'm having more fun with the other two, I'll admit. Regal by Victoria Bates. And it is a series. Now, one other thing I did while I was on holiday is I did a bit of a social media detox. I promised myself if I look at my phone, there's no opening social media. No, I muted the Discord for a little bit, and I've tried since coming back as well to kind of keep going on that. But that meant I needed something else to do when I opened my phone, because I'm a millennial and opening my phone is basically a reflex at this point. So what I've ended up doing is reading webtoons. So how many, I've been thinking about this for the last few weeks. How many chapters of a webtoon do I have to read before I can count it on this list? And I have made a mark of about 20. I think 20 chapters is good. And that's how many I can do before I need to put it on here. And I'll just put them as like part 1, part 2, part 3. And there's 2 I've caught up with. 2 really big ones that I have read since in the last few years that I've caught up with, and they're massive. They're massive chunky ones. You may know of them. One is Lore Olympus. Social media detox. Yeah, right. I try live streamer detox and my animosity only increases on ya. I kind of liked my social media detox. In fact, I came back, I opened Twitter, and I immediately saw something really inflammatory, so I was like, yeah, I'm going to try stick to that. So I'm going to start calculating how many things I can add for that. Because Lore Olympus was 226 chapters. And yes, I didn't read all that recently. I've read a bit of it, and I've taken breaks, and over the past year or so, I think a couple years, I've probably read that. But I need to do a calculation on how much that adds to my total. So 286 divided by 20 is 14.3. I'll round down. So when will YouTube realize that ads interrupting my friend's stream will make me want to buy their shit even less? I know, right? I do apologize that ads exist. I appreciate you putting up with them now. So that's a lot I can add. So how many is that? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I can add that. So Lore Olympus. When you get third-party YouTube, they'll stop giving you ads and you'll be able to see Brenny's dislikes. I don't get too many of them. I can see them obviously behind. But I don't get too many. I've had some random ones, but I'm usually pretty good. There we go. And then I'm gonna do this. Lore Olympus. There we go. Webtoon. A few years since I checked in on Lore Olympus. I remember liking it. It's finished now. It's done. So if you want to get the whole story, you can do it. And that's basically what I've been doing. It let me, it had a daily pass on it to unlock one chapter. And then it let me, like, watch an advert per chapter. Oh yeah, it's not Webtoon. It's Webtoon, isn't it? Yeah, Webtoon, not Webtoon. And then it let me read like 20 chapters a day, and I got through it real fast. Real fast. It's good stuff. It's good stuff. Highly recommend. Again, if you want that family Greek drama, this Lore Olympus was a wonderful. What's the name of the person who did Lore Olympus? Rachel Smythe. Good old Rachel. She did a real good thing. Rachel Smythe. Series, but I completed it. I read it all. But hello, Boris. Yeah, 3D time. Maybe people that get banned dislike you randomly. I mean, I haven't really banned that many people in total. Good one. And Rebirth was a good one. I haven't read Rebirth. One of the other ones I did read and finished. Another big one. It was 109. I think I pressed the number 9 somewhere, didn't I? Yes, I pressed the number 9, and that's what that mutes me. Anyway, what I was saying is I clapped, and then I said it was amazing, and I said that if you want some Yuri, you want some girl love, you want some RPG adventures, you want some funny goofs, it is good. Yes, the lesbians, the wonderful, wonderful lesbians in Mage and Demon Queen. Highly recommend. Wonderful stuff. I don't realize unless you guys tell me. I literally cannot. Well, I probably could check OBS, really, but like, I wouldn't think to check unless you guys tell me. I could be going on mute for a long time unless you guys tell me. So it's 9 these. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We're going to there. Mage and Demon Queen. Also Webtoon. Who did Mage and Demon Queen? Colorless. And that was a series. Da-na-na-na-na. Da-na-na-na-na. Look at that! I read so much! I've also been reading some other ones, but I haven't read enough to actually get anything. I've been reading The Charming Duke of the North. I found my Gently Raised Beast, which is one I've bought some physical volumes of, but now I can read it on the webtoon, which is good. Because the webtoon is kind of annoying. Because... Well, no, the books are kind of annoying. Because there is a trope in it I really dislike. I dislike like the misunderstanding trope when it comes to romance. And there's a lot of it in my Gently Raised Beast. But I'm less mad when I don't have to pay for it. And that's it. I'm going to need a new one. My fiance has recommended Teenage Mercenary. Oh no, that's not really romantic. I kind of like the romantic one. Oh, and I keep reading my thought my time was up. Oh, there's Castle Swimmers. I need to catch up on Castle Swimmers. And Batman. Batman Wayne Family Adventures. Remarried Empress, is it good? That's definitely probably one that should be on my list. I very much like that kind of stuff. I remember one of the dudes that got banned. Maybe. I don't really remember them. And that's how it should be. I'm not going to get caught up on that kind of stuff. So, 10,000. Take that. So we have 9,849 to go. Let's add that. Let's make that my new total. Give that a save first. There we go. Books until freedom. 40. Sorry about that, guys. Sorry. I just want to read See You My 19th Life. It's fine. We've done all the spreadsheet we need to now. I shouldn't have to press numbers anymore. We're fine. Dang, Boris, it's funny to see you like that. God, you're so mean, Lloyd. So mean. But anyway, that's a chunk off, innit? That was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 20, 26. 26 off my total. Heck yeah. That's got to be the most productive I've ever been. Okay. Death is the only ending for the villains. Ooh, that sounds right up my street. I love me some villainess shite. 1 second, I promise I will do the recap in a minute. I just want to find this. Death is the only ending. Are you sure it is on Webtoon? Is that a tappy tune, not a Webtoon? Because that's a different thing. However, it sounds freaking great. If you find third-party scan letters, please don't share them. They're getting correct. Yeah, I tried to avoid non-official releases most of the time. But I will keep an eye out for it. If it has an official release, I will be going manga shopping again this weekend. So I will keep an eye out for it. Before Brian Smith came along, Greater Manchester was just kind of okay, Manchester. Lol. You got a lurk, Luke. Have a wonderful lurk. Thank you so much for popping into the chat. Have a good chill. Bye. But not bye, because you're just lurking. You're still there, but also bye. It's all very, very thingy. I'll give you a literal list if you just ask, don't tell me. By all means, recommend stuff in the Discord. There's a place for recommending things on there. There is one on Dotodaya beginning end, but it hasn't been updated in 3 years. Boo. That's sad. Anyway... Oh, no, we don't want that. We have talked much about that modern storytelling of Webtoon. Now it is time to go back in time and read something much older, but still just as dramatic. I would very much like a Webtoon. So if third parties are the only way you get something, do you ignore it? Yes, most of the time. There are some exceptions, but it would be very stupid of me to discuss that on a recorded and public setting. But most of the time, yeah, I will just not read it if it's not available in unofficial releases. Anyway, we shall read. Okay, so, what is Pride and Prejudice about, and how have we gotten 69% of the way in, and only just had Elizabeth start to feel about her feelings for, what's his face? Darcy! Big gold piece. Down it fresh A. It is fresh this week, actually. Down it fresh ASMR. So, this all started when Mr. Bingley moved into town. Mrs. Bennet, Elizabeth's mother, was so excited that a new man had moved into town because she might be able to marry off one of her 5 daughters. And Mr. Bingley did in fact get a lot closer to one of Elizabeth's sisters, Jane. But what Mr. Bingley also brought into town was his best friend, Mr. Darcy. Briny voice crack book reading? Voice crack? That would hurt my throat, most likely. And Mr. Darcy was so rude and so mean, and no one really got along with Mr. Darcy. He was, however, very snarky. And did you know who else is snarky? Miss Elizabeth is very snarky. So, when Mrs. Jane and Bingley were getting close together, Jane went to Bingley's house for a catch-up, and ended up getting gravely ill because she got rained on the whole way there. And then Elizabeth was like, well, I'm going to go visit my sister. So she stayed at Mr. Bingley's estate while her sister was getting better and grew closer to Mr. Darcy. Though she still did not like Mr. Darcy, it was clear that there was something between them. I'm snarky. I like to think I'm snarky. But then they went home, and suddenly Mr. Bingley was off. He left town very quickly, and then there didn't seem to be any sign of coming back, and Jane was just heartbroken, she was. Elizabeth also met another man called Mr. Wickham, who had some history with Mr. Darcy. Something stolen, promised money not handed over, something. It was mostly lies what Mr. Wickham told him, but it did put a very bad light on Mr. Darcy. So eventually Elizabeth went to go visit her friend who married her cousin, and then there they met Mr. Darcy again, and Mr. Darcy confessed his love and offered marriage to Elizabeth, and Elizabeth was like, no. 1, you convinced Mr. Bingley to move and broke my sister's heart. 2, you are very mean to this man called Mr. Wickham. And then the next day, Darcy gave her a letter which kind of explained everything. Explained that the situation with Wickham is not how Mr. Wickham told it. And that he thought that the whole family was gold digging with Mr. Bingley and wanted to protect his friend. And when she looks back at it and sees the way her mother behaved, as much as Jane really did like him, she doesn't show it as much as other girls maybe, and her mother and her sisters are actually gold diggers, and she's like, maybe he's right. So, she's starting to feel a little bit better about him. However, he did have to leave the next day. She had to go home. And now she's on a holiday with her aunt and uncle. And they went to go visit his estate. He wasn't in. So she was like, well, we can just go in. We can just look around. And we'll be out before anyone knows it. And then, lo and behold, he came home. And it was very awkward that this woman who had spurned him was in his own house when he'd gone on a bit of a jaunt. I can't remember if they decided if they managed to leave or not. But we'll find out. Let's just go from chapter I'm not sure what that number is because my Roman numerals suck. If you do, then let me know. One quick drink first, though, and then I'll be ready. Okay. Convinced, as Elizabeth now was, that Miss Bingley's dislike of her had originated in jealousy, she could not help feeling how very unwelcome her appearance at Pemberley must have been to her, and was curious to know with how much civility that lady's side the acquaintance would now be renewed. On reaching the house, they were shown through the hall into the salon, whose northern aspect rendered it delightful for summer. Its windows opening to the ground admitted a most refreshing view of the high woody hills behind the house, and of the beautiful oaks and Spanish chestnuts which were scattered over the intermediate lawn. In his room they were received by Miss Darcy, who was sitting there with Mrs. Hurst and Miss Bingley, and the lady with whom she lived in London. Georgina's reception of them was very civil, but attended with all that embarrassment which, though proceeding from shyness and fear was doing wrong, would easily give those who felt themselves inferior the belief of her being proud and reserved. Mrs. Gardiner and her niece, however, did her justice and pitied her. By Mrs. Hurst and Miss Bingley they were noticed only by a courtesy, and on their being seated a pause awkward as such pauses must always be, succeeded a few moments. It was first broken by Mrs. Ainsley, a genteel, agreeable-looking woman, whose endeavour to introduce some kind of discourse proved her to be more truly well-bred than either of the others. And between her and Mrs. Gardiner, with occasional help from Elizabeth, the conversation carried on. Miss Darcy looked as if she wished for courage enough to join in it, and sometimes did venture a short sentence, when there was least danger of being heard. Elizabeth soon saw that she was herself closely watched by Miss Bingley, and that she could not speak a word, especially to Miss Darcy, without calling her attention. This observation would not have prevented her from talking to the latter, had they not been seated at the inconvenient distance, but she was not sorry to be spared the necessity of saying much. Her own thoughts were employing her. She expected every moment that some of the gentlemen would enter the room. She wished, she feared, that the master of the house might be amongst them, and whether she wished or feared it most, she could scarcely determine. After sitting in this manner a quarter of an hour, without hearing Miss Bingley's voice once, Elizabeth was roused by receiving her cold inquiry after the health of her family. She answered with equal indifference and brevity, and the other said no more. The next variation which their visit afforded was produced by the entrance of servants with cold meat, cake, and a variety of all the finest fruits in the season, but this did not take place till after many a significant look and smile from Mrs. Ainsley to Miss Darcy, who had been given to remind her of her post. Hello, Midden. I'm chatting from PC Goon. I also want cake now. We all want cake. Cake makes everything better. And there was now employment for the whole party, for though they could not talk, they could all eat, and the beautiful pyramids of grapes, nectarines, and peaches soon collected them round the table. While thus engaged, Elizabeth had a fair opportunity of deciding whether she most feared or wished for the appearance of Mr. Darcy, by the feelings which prevailed on his entering the room, and then, though but a moment before she had believed her wishes to predominate, she began to regret that he came. Could go for some tres leches cake. No cake for you, though. No cake for any of you. Unless, well, then again, I assume many of you are adults that can go out and get your own cake. It is the best thing about being an adult. You get to go and get your own cake. I had so much cake on holiday. I actually don't really want cake. There was so much cake and it was so good. There was this one cake. It was like, oh, I don't even know how to describe it. You know, you ever had a Jaffa cake? I think they're more of a British thing, so people might not have. But the Jaffa cakes have, I know, you as a teen, you don't have that power yet to go get a cake on your own, but you look forward to it. But then it was a Jaffa cake. Like, the bottom of a Jaffa cake is like a really thin and solid cake. And there was like a piece of chocolate, kind of like this. It was like kind of like a hardened mousse. And then it had little bits of like Jaffa cake in there. Oh, it was so good. I only had it once. And every time there was a cake buffet, after I had it that once, I was looking for it, but they never did it again while I was there. And I was so sad, and I was like, why didn't I get 2 while I had the chance? Cake. I'm sorry. One of the things that grew to get me talking is food. I had a chili con carne tonight. We had a slow cooked beef brisket chili con carne tonight, and it was so good. And we had some tiger bread baton with it, and it was good. Sorry, now I'm just talking about food. Not sorry. Don't eat so much. You become chunky, Rose Smith. That's fine. That's what the gym is for. That's fine. I went to the gym today. And I have daily walks. I do exercise. We're good. We're good. We're good. I can't now. I've already said no to cake. There's never too much cake, only not enough stomach. Correct. Yes, I'm an adult, so nothing is stopping me from going out and buying an entire cake and eating it all for lunch. Correct! I'm craving some coffee cake, not gonna lie. Yeah, you can have all the coffee cake. I don't want the coffee cake. That's all yours. I don't want it. It's all yours. But the gym doesn't exist in Britain. The gym do exist. I do go to the gym, the game. The Carmenite game. Anyway, after that momentary food distraction. While thus engaged, Elizabeth had a fair opportunity to decide. He had been some time with Mr. Gardiner, who, with 2 or 3 other gentlemen from the house, was engaged by the river, and had left him only on learning that the ladies of the family intended a visit to Georgina that morning. No sooner did he appear than Elizabeth wisely resolved to be perfectly easy and unembarrassed, a resolution the more necessary to be made, but perhaps not the more easily kept, because she saw that the suspicions of the whole party were awakened against them, and that there was scarcely an eye which did not watch his behaviour when he first came into the room. In no countenance was attentive curiosity so strongly marked as in Miss Bingley's, in spite of the smiles which overspread her face whenever she spoke to one of its objects, for jealousy had not yet made her desperate, and her attentions to Mr. Darcy were by no means over. Miss Darcy, on her brother's entrance, exerted herself much more to talk, and Elizabeth saw that he was anxious for his sister and herself to get acquainted, and forwarded as much as possible every attempt at conversation on either side. Miss Bingley saw all this likewise, and, in the impudence of anger, took the first opportunity of saying, with sneering civility, "Pray, Miss Eliza, are you not the Shire Militar removed from Merton? They must be a great loss to your family." You barely even do anything at the gym, though. I know, but I do it. I did more than I expected at the gym today, actually. I was on the stair machine, you know, the one that's basically just fake steps and you just walk upstairs, but it's like a treadmill, but it's stairs. I ended up doing like 5 minutes extra on that because I was reading webtoons, and I was just like, well, I'm reading, and I just barely noticed the exercise I was doing. No. Oh no, that was correct. I need to do that. Why do all of my VTuber mates go to the gym? This is the second one. Because we're old people. Because we're not young anymore. We have to look after our bodies, otherwise we'll fall apart. Yes, exactly. I did more than not going to gym. That's the way I think about it a lot. Like, even if I don't do much at the gym, it's better than not going. Exercise hack. Get so distracted you don't realize you exercise. Yes. It's very hard to do, though, because it's not often I'm going to be so engrossed in something that I forget that I am going. It's rare, and I should take advantage of it when I do. But if I'm so unaware that I'm exercising, how am I going to be aware enough to take advantage of it, when you ask? I have no clue. Exactly, my body is already falling apart, so I don't have to worry about it. Reading at the gym, at least it ain't TikTok at the gym. I mean, I look at that too. I mean, I look at my phone a lot. I have taken books to the gym in the past. And I've seen TikToks of people taking their crochet to the gym. And I have been tempted to take my crochet to the gym. Like, I could do crochet while, like, on the bike. That I could do. Easy. Easy peasy. I could do that. On, like, a treadmill, maybe not so much. I don't think I have the coordination for that, but I could do it on the bike. In Darcy's presence, she dared not mention Wickham's name, but Elizabeth instantly comprehended that he was upmost in her thoughts, and the various recollections connected with him gave her a moment's distress, but, exerting herself vigorously to repel the ill-natured attack, she presently answered the question in a tolerably disengaged tone. While she spoke, an involuntary glance showed her Darcy with a heightened complexion, earnestly looking at her, and his sister overcome with confusion and unable to lift up her eyes. Had Miss Bingley known what pain she was then giving her beloved friend, she undoubtedly would have refrained from the hint, but she had merely intended to decompose Elizabeth by bringing forward the idea of a man to whom she believed her partial, to make her betray a sensibility which might injure her in Darcy's opinion, and perhaps to remind the latter of all the follies and absurdities by which some part of her family were connected with their corpse. Not a syllable had reached her of Miss Darcy's meditated elopement. To no creature had it been revealed, where secrecy was possible, except to Elizabeth, and from all Bingley's connections, her brother was partially anxious to conceal it. From that very wish, which Elizabeth had long ago attributed to him, of their becoming hereafter her own. He had certainly formed such a plan, and without meaning that it should affect his endeavour to separate him from Miss Bennet. It is probable that it might add something to his lively concern for the welfare of his friend. Girl, I can't ride a bike. I can't either. I can do a bike that doesn't have wheels, that's an exercise bike. I can't do a bike that has wheels. I never learned that one. It stinks that the summers are so hot where I live. I remember going through a cool wooded path and being able to go miles and not really notice. That's great. There's a few, like, foresty places where I live. One of the things we love to do in summer is go on, like, the forest adventures. We didn't really get to do many this year, actually. But I think that's because I got a job that had peak summer hours, so I was in work a lot this year, which was a bit sad, really. But hey-ho, one of them. Maybe next year. Or maybe we could do some cute autumn ones. We just bundle up a little bit and they'll be fine. We do cute autumn walks. We do like to do a Christmas walk. There's a lot of sort of Christmas lights that, like, a lot of foresty places set up, like, cool lights and things around Christmas. Like, the zoo near us does, like, a cool lantern walk, which is one we've done, and a few other places. So we do a forest walk at Christmas, at least. That's always good. Jim, Grady, Bridie, getting hench or getting gains, all kind of just maintaining some level of fitness. I meant the recording self-clout for thing. Oh yeah, I definitely don't do that kind of TikTok at the gym. Definitely not. Elopement, yes. Mr. Wickham, one of the bad things he did is he tried to marry Darcy's little sister, just mainly for revenge than anything else. Money. Yeah, money is important, so unfortunately we missed a little summer this year, but that's okay. Next year! Elizabeth's collected behaviour, however, soon quieted his emotion, and as Miss Bingley, vexed and disappointed, dared not approach nearer to Wickham, Georgina also recovered in time, though not enough to be able to speak any more. Her brother, whose eyes she feared to meet, scarcely recollected her interest in the affair, and the very circumstance which had been designed to turn his thoughts from Elizabeth seemed to have fixed them on her more and more cheerfully. Their visit did not continue long after the question and answer above mentioned. While Mr. Darcy was attending them to their carriage, Miss Bingley was venturing her feelings in criticisms on Elizabeth's person, behaviour, and dress, but Georgina would not join her. Her brother's recommendation was enough to ensure her favour. His judgment could not err, and he had spoken in such terms of Elizabeth as to leave Georgina without the power of finding her otherwise than lovely and amiable. When Darcy returned to the saloon, Miss Bingley could not help repeating him some part of what she had been saying to his sister. "How very ill Eliza Bennet looks this morning, Mr. Darcy," she cried. "I've never in my life saw anyone so much altered as she is in the winter. She has grown so brown and coarse. Louisa and I were agreeing that we should not have known her again. Oh my!" However little Mr. Darcy might have liked such an address, he contented himself with coolly replying that he perceived no other alteration than her being rather tanned, no miraculous consequence of travelling in the summer. "For my own part," she rejoined, "I must confess that I never could see any beauty in her. Her face is too thin, her complexion has no brilliancy, and her features are not at all handsome. Her nose wants character, there is nothing marked in its lines. Her teeth are tolerable, but not out of the common way, and as for her eyes, which have sometimes been called so fine, I never could perceive anything extraordinary about them. They have a sharp, shrewish look, which I do not like at all, and in her air altogether there is a self-sufficiency without fashion, which is intolerable." Oh my! Mrs. Bingley bringing out the claws. Meow! Persuaded as Miss Bingley was that Darcy admired Elizabeth, this was not the best method of recommending herself. No, it really wasn't. It's not. She's a very silly woman. But angry people are not always wise, and in seeing him at last look somewhat nettled, she had all the success she expected. She was resolutely silent, however, and from the determination of making him speak, she continued. "Her face is too thin. She's not handsome." I'm sorry, can you play that back? I don't understand. That's exactly what she said. Handsome is a word used in this. Her face is too thin, her complexion has no brilliancy, and her features are not handsome at all. Handsome is definitely a word used for beautiful women in this time, as well as men. In fact, I haven't really seen men be used to just being described as handsome in this. They tend, I think, there's been other words used for men in this rather than handsome. Women have most prominently used handsome. And she has no riz, my good sir. Basically, yeah. In summary, She has no riz. Absolutely none. Her vibes are off. the Gen Z Pride and Prejudice. I remember when we first knew her in Hertfordshire, how amazed we all were to find she had a reputed beauty. I particularly recollect your saying one night, after they had been dining in Netherfield, she a beauty, I should as soon call her mother a wit. But afterwards she seemed to improve on you, and I believe you thought her rather pretty at one time. L ratio, not handsome, my words, vibes off, yeah. Play ain't got no game. She ain't got no game. I know what I'll do to win this man's affections. I'll go dump on the woman. I'll go like on an angry rant about the woman he proposed to recently right in front of him and get him to agree, because that's totally gonna work. That's how you get to a man's heart, through pissing on other women. Yes, replied Darcy, who could contain himself no longer, but that was only when I first knew her, for it is many months since I have considered her as one of the handsomest women of my acquaintance. He then went away, and Miss Bingley was left to all satisfaction of having forced him to say what gave no one any pain but herself. That's what you get, bitch. That's what you get. For some guys it would work. Evidently not for Mr. Darcy. And for some guys they may have to, potentially. Because, I mean, the type of woman who does this is probably not the best kind of woman either. So for the guys that this would work on, I would recommend shifting your standards slightly, because you may end up sticking your pee-pee in crazy, and I thought we had a rule about that, where you don't stick your pee-pee in crazy. Mrs. Gardiner and Elizabeth talked of all that had occurred during their visit, as they returned, except what had particularly interested them both. The looks and behaviour of everybody they had seen were discussed, except for the person who had mostly engaged their attention. They talked of his sister, his friends, his house, his fruit, of everything but himself. Yet Elizabeth was longing to know what Mrs. Gardiner thought of him, and Mrs. Gardiner would have been highly gratified by her niece's beginning the subject. No, you talk about your future husband. No, you talk about my future husband. No, you talk about my future husband. No, you talk about my future husband. Exactly, but for some guys, sticking pee-pee in crazy is worth it as long as pee-pee goes in some. I guess so. Standards. I thought you had rules. We have rules for these things. Talking about fruit. So scandalous am I? Not the fruit. His fruit. I wish I could wink. His fruit. Elizabeth had been a good deal disappointed in not finding a letter from Jane on their first arrival at Lambton, and this disappointment had been renewed on each of the mornings that had been spent there. But on the third, her repining was over, and her sister justified by the receipt of 2 letters, one from her at once, and one which was marked that it had been missent elsewhere. Oh no! Rules are meant to be broken. Get out of here with your Star L baseball bat. Talking about the old apple and pears, huh? No, we're not talking about the old apple and pears. That's the stairs. That's the stairs. The apples and pears ain't nothing scandalous. That's the stairs. Apples and pears is the stairs. There ain't nothing nude about the apples and pears. They had just been preparing to walk as the letter came in, and her uncle and aunt, leaving her to enjoy them in quiet, set off by themselves. The one Miss sent must be first attended to. It had been written 5 days ago. The beginning contains an account of all their little parties and engagements, with such news as the county county. I still don't know which one it is. County, country. I guess count, because it's got a U, because it says count. And then would be country. I don't know. But the latter half, which was dated a day later, and written in evident agitation, gave more important intelligence. It was to this effect. Stairs aren't scandalous, remembers that one scene from a history of violence. I mean, stairs are a very effective murder weapon. That could be quite scandalous. Well, actually, no, they're not very effective. People could fall down the stairs and be fine. You could push someone down the stairs and they'd be okay. But they would be kind of hurt at the bottom, so you could at least finish them off. But then the stairs aren't the murder weapon anymore. Since writing the above, dearest Lizzie, something has occurred of a most unexpected and serious nature. But I am afraid of alarming you. Be assured that we are all well. What I have to say relates to poor Lydia. An express came at 12 last night, just as we were all gone to bed from Colonel Foster, to inform us that she was gone off to Scotland with one of his officers. To own the truth, with Wickham! Imagine our surprise! To Kitty, however, it does not seem so wholly unexpected. I am very, very sorry. So imprudent a match on both sides, but I am willing to hope the best. And that his character has been misunderstood. Oh, shit. Mr. Wickham, stop trying to marry teenage girls, please. Please, for 1 hot minute, stop trying to marry teenage girls. This one doesn't even have that much money. Not legal advice, not legal advice. I fell down the stairs. I'm okay. I've fallen down the stairs before and I'm okay. So it's definitely not actually a very good murder weapon now I think about it. I've seen plenty of telenovelas where someone dramatically falls down to know it's effective. I haven't seen any telenovelas. I've just learned their legends from other TV shows that like dramatize them. Are they as dramatic as their as the stereotype makes them? Mr. Wickham, FBI, open up! Yes, we do need to call the FBI, Mr. Wickham. Victorian man not marrying a child challenge level impossible. Wickham level. Ooh, it's just occurred to me. Sorry, I was thinking about the telenovelas and stuff, and then I was like, aren't they as dramatic as, say, a British soap at Christmas? Because that gets real dramatic. Someone normally dies at Christmas in a British soap. Or someone is someone's secret brother. Or the pub gets wrecked. Something like that. Apparently British soaps are becoming more popular. Apparently there's been clips of Hollyoaks on TikTok. And now the younger generation are like, oh my god, what is this? Because they're dramatic as heck. Because that's what soaps are. So I'm wondering... Sorry, I dropped something. 1 minute. There we go. Okay. I'm wondering if there's going to be a resurgence in British soaps. Remembering the Downton Abbey Christmas version. Oh god, yeah. There was one where the protagonist dies like 3 times. Okay, they are definitely more dramatic than a British soap. Our British soaps are at least grounded to a degree, but like still very dramatic. But if someone dies 3 times, that's not very grounded. Where was I? I completely got distracted for a minute talking about soaps. But I am willing to hope the best, and that his character has been misunderstood. Thoughtless and indiscreet, I can easily believe him, but this step, and let us rejoice over it, marks nothing bad at heart. His choice is disinterested, at least, for he must know my father can give her nothing. Our poor mother is sadly grieved. My father bears it better. How thankful I am that we never let him know what has been said against him. We must forget it ourselves. Oh yeah, because she did at least tell. No, I don't think she told her the full secret. I think she told her a little bit of it. All I know about telenovelas is the Matilda Lisiada bit from Maria la del Barrio. I think I would love to track down a telenovela. Just to see. We gotta love some other culture TV shows, you know? And it's a staple, right? They were off Saturday night about 12, as is conjecture, but were not missed till yesterday morning at 8. The express was sent off directly. My dear Lizzie, they must have passed within 10 miles of us. Colonel Foster gives us reason to expect him here soon. Lydia left a few lines for his wife, informing her of their intention. I must conclude, for I cannot be long from my poor mother. I am afraid you will not be able to make it out, but I hardly know what I have written. Oh wow, so she was just like, I need to tell you this, but I really need to go, bye, I love you. No wonder it got lost in the post if she was like really rushed in writing it at the end. Without allowing herself time for consideration, and scarcely knowing what she felt, Elizabeth, on finishing this letter, instantly seized the other, and opening it with the utmost patience, read as follows. It has been written a day later than the conclusion of the first. By this time, my dearest sister, you have received my hurried letter. I wish this may be more intelligible, but though not confined for time, my head is so bewildered that I cannot answer for being coherent. Dearest Lizzie, I hardly know what I would write. But I have bad news for you. It cannot be delayed. Imprudent as a marriage between Mr. Wickham and our poor Lydia would be, we are now anxious to be assured it has taken place. For there is but too much reason to fear they are gone to Scotland. Colonel Foster came yesterday, having left Brighton the day before, not many hours after the express. Though Lydia's short letter to Mrs. F. gave them to understand that they were going to Gretna Green, something was dropped by Denny expressing his belief that Wickham never intended to go there. Or to Mrs. F. W. F. What is this, a Reddit post? Am I the asshole for not stopping the marriage between an underage girl and one of my subordinates? Never intended to go there, or to marry Lydia at all, which was repeated to Colonel F., who instantly, taking the alarm, set off from B. Brighton, intending to chase their route. He did trace them easily to Clapham, but no farther, for on entering the place they removed into a hackney coach and dismissed the chassis that brought them from Epsom. All that is known after this is that they were seen to continue the London road. I know not what to think. After making every possible inquiry on that side of London, Colonel F. came into Hertfordshire, anxiously renewing them all the turnpikes and at the inns in Barnet and Hertford and Hatfield, but without any success. No such people had been seen to pass through. With the kindest concern he came to Longbourn, and broke his apprehensions to us in a manner most creditable to his heart. I am sincerely grieved for him and Mrs. F., but no one can throw any blame on them. Our distress, my dear Lizzie, is very great. My father and mother believe the worst, but I cannot think ill of him. Many circumstances might make it more eligible for them to be married privately in town than to pursue their first plan. and even he could not form such a design against a young woman of Lydia's connections, which is not likely. Can I suppose her so lost to everything? Impossible. I grieve to find, however, that Colonel F. is not disposed to depend upon the marriage. He shook his head when I expressed my hopes, and said he feared Wickham was not a man to be trusted. My poor mother is really ill, and keeps her room. Could she exert herself, it would be better, but this is not to be expected. And as to my father, I have never in my life saw him so affected. Poor Kitty has anger for having concealed their attachment, but as it was a nature of confidence, one cannot wonder. I am truly glad, dearest Lizzie, that you have been spared something of these distressing scenes. But now, as the first shock is over, shall I own that I long for your return? I am not so selfish, however, as to press for it, if inconvenient. Adieu, I take up my pen again to do that I have just told you I would not. But circumstances are such that I cannot help earnestly begging you all to come here as soon as possible. I know my dear uncle and aunt so well that I am not afraid of requesting it, though I have still something more to ask of the former. My father is going to London with Colonel Foster instantly to try to discover her. What he means to do, I am sure I know not, but his excessive distress will not allow him to pursue any measure in the best and safest way, and Colonel Foster is obligated to be in Brighton again tomorrow evening. In such an something, my uncle's advice and assistance would be everything in the world. He will immediately comprehend what I must feel. I rely upon his goodness. Oh, where is uncle? Cried Elizabeth, darting from her seat as she finished the letter, in eagerness to follow him, without losing a moment of the time so precious. But as she reached the door, it was opened by a servant, and Mr. Darcy appeared. Her pale face and imperious manner made him start, and before he could recover himself enough to speak, she, in whose mind every idea was superseded by Lydia's situation, hastily exclaimed, I beg your pardon, but I must leave. I must find Mr. Gardiner this moment, on business that cannot be delayed. I have not an instant to lose. Good God! What is the matter? He cried, with more feeling than politeness. Then recoiling himself, I will not deign you a minute, but let me, or let the servant go, after Mr. and Mrs. Gardiner. You are not well enough. You cannot go yourself. Elizabeth hesitated, but her knees trembled under her, and she felt how little would be gained by her attempting to pursue them. Calling back the servant, therefore, she commissioned him, though in so breathless an accent as made her almost unintelligible, to fetch his master and mistress home instantly. On his quitting the room, she sat down, unable to support herself, and looking so miserably ill that it was impossible for Darcy to leave her, or to refrain from saying, in a tone of gentleness and consideration, Let me be your maid. Let me call your maid. Let me be your maid. Stick Darcy in the maid outfit. Me watching Kamen Rider Black for the 5th time. Yeah, more international TV is good. I haven't watched that one. I've watched O's and Double and a little bit of Wizard and Game. I watched Game. I like Kamen Rider, but it's getting really annoying to find on the internet. Ba-ba. Let me call your maid. Is there nothing you could take to give you present relief? A glass of wine. Shall I get you one? You're very ill. All the classics. And Wizard. I know, right? I could do a Wizard rant now, because Wizard will look so cool. His outfit is so cool. And the fights are pretty damn good by Kamen Rider standards. But oh my god, is the acting so boring. Oh, I watched, actually, what was the other one I watched? Uchukita! What was that one? Brain, come on. It was Ichigo who played it. Ichigo played the main character. The guy who plays Ichigo in the Bleach movie played that Kamen Rider. Space Boy. Best boy. Foze! That's it. I was playing the intro in my head until I remembered which Kamen Rider it was. Foze! Yay! I love that one. That was good. It made me happy. It was so cheesy. It was great. Foze! Yeah. Foze. Mm-hmm. No, I thank you, she replied, endeavouring to recover herself. There is nothing the matter with me. I am quite well. I am only distressed by some dreadful news, which I have just received from Longbourn. She burst into tears as she alluded to it, and for a few minutes could not speak another word. Darcy, in wretched suspense, could only say something indistinct of his concern, and observe her in compassionate silence. At length she spoke again. I have just had a letter from Jane, with some dreadful news. It cannot be concealed from anyone. My youngest sister has left all her friends, has eloped and thrown herself to the power of Mr. Wickham. They are gone off together from Brighton. You know him too well to doubt the rest. She has no money, no connections, nothing that can tempt him. She's lost forever. We're getting official Kamen Rider releases here in the States. I can toss out the bootlegs. But DVDs are region locked. I can't use the US ones. Meh. They have released some of them subbed on YouTube, but it's all random episodes. It's really annoying. Darcy was fixed in astonishment. When I consider, she added in yet more agitated tone, that I might have prevented it, I who knew what he was, I had but explained some part of it only, some part of what I learned to my own family. Had his character been known, this could not have happened. But it is all too late now. I am grieved indeed, cried Darcy, grieved. Shocked, but it is certain. But is it certain? Absolutely certain? Oh, yes! They left Brighton together on Sunday night, and were traced almost to London, but not beyond. They are certainly not gone to Scotland. And what has been done? What has been attempted to recover her? My father has gone to London, and Jane has written to beg my uncle's immediate assistance. And we shall be off, I hope, in half an hour, but nothing can be done. I know very well that nothing can be done. How is such a man to be worked on? How are they even to be discovered? I have not the smallest hope. It is every way horrible. Darcy shook his head in silent acquiescence. When my eyes were opened to his real character, oh, I had known what I ought, what I dared to, but I knew not. I was afraid of doing too much. Wretched, wretched mistake. Darcy made no answer. He seemed scarcely to hear her, and was walking up and down the room in earnest mediation. His brow contracted, his air gloomy. Elizabeth soon observed and instantly understood. Her power was sinking. Everything must sink under such proof of family weakness. Such an assurance of the deepest sweetie! She's like, oh no, he might not like me now that my sister's in exactly the same situation that his sister was in, except the fact that Mr. Pedo actually got married to my sister. Sweetie! He still loves you, you dumbass. He already knows your family are shitheads. He doesn't need to know. He still proposed to you even though he knew your family were shitheads. She could neither wonder nor condemn. But the belief of his self-conquest brought nothing consolatory to her bosom, afforded no palliation of her distress. It was, on the contrary, exactly calculated to make her understand her own wishes. Never had she so honestly felt that she could have loved him as now, when all love must be in vain. You don't know what you want, you don't know what you have until it's gone. But self, though Lydia would intrude, could not engross her. Lydia, the humiliation, the misery she was bringing on all of them, soon swallowed up every private care, and covering her face with her handkerchief, Elizabeth was soon lost to everything else. And after a pause of several minutes, she was only recalled to a sense of her situation by the voice of her companion, who, in a manner which, though it spoke compassion, spoke likewise restraint, said, "I am afraid you have been long desiring my absence, nor have I anything to plead in excuse of my stay, but real, though unavailing concern. Would to heaven that anything could be either said or done on my part that might offer consolation to such distress. But I will not torment you with vain wishes, which may seem purposely to ask of your thanks. This unfortunate affair, I fear, prevents my sister's having the pleasure of seeing you at Pemberley today. Oh, yes. Be so kind as to apologize for us to Miss Darcy. Say that urgent business called us home immediately. Conceal the unhappy truth as long as it is possible. I know it cannot be long." He readily assured her of his secrecy, again expressed his sorrow for her distress, wished it a happier conclusion than there was at present reason to hope, and, leaving his compliments for her relations, with only one serious parting look, went away. As he quitted the room, Elizabeth felt how improbable it was that they should ever see each other again on such a cordially as marked their several meetings in Derbyshire. And as she threw a retrospective glance over the whole of their acquaintance, so full of contradictions and varieties, sighed at the perverseness of those feelings which would now have promoted its continuance, and would formerly have rejoiced in its termination. If gratitude and esteem are good foundations of affection, Elizabeth's change of sentiments will be neither improbable nor faulty. But if otherwise, if the regard of springing from such sources as unreasonable or unnatural, in comparison of what is so often described as arising on a first interview with its object, and even before two words have been exchanged, nothing can be said in her defence, except that she had been given somewhat of a trial to the latter method, in her partiality for Wickham, and that its ill success might perhaps authorize her to seek the other less interesting mode of attachment. Be that as it may, she saw him go with regret, and in this early example of what Lydia's infamy must produce, found additional anguish as she reflected on that wretched business. Never since reading Jane's second letter had she entertained a hope of Mr. Wickham's meeting to marry her. No one but Jane, she thought, could flatter herself with such an expectation. Surprised was the least of all her feelings on this development. While the contents of the first letter remained on her mind, she was all surprise, all astonishment, that Wickham should marry a girl whom it was impossible he could marry for money, and how Lydia could have attached him, and appeared incomprehensible. But now it was all too natural. For such an attachment as this, she might have sufficient charms, and though she did not suppose Lydia to be deliberately engaging in an elopement without the intention of marriage, she had no difficulty in believing that neither her virtue nor her understanding would preserve her from falling as an easy prey. She had never perceived, while the regiment was in Hertfordshire, that Lydia had any particularity for him, but she was convinced that Lydia had wanted only encouragement to attach herself to anybody, sometimes one officer, sometimes another, and had been her favourite, as their intentions raised them in her opinion. Her affections had been continually fluctuating, but never without an object. The mischief of neglect and mistaken indulgence towards such a girl. Oh, how accurately did she now feel it? Basically, Lydia is a baba who was in that stage where I've seen girls that, I don't know if I did this. I don't particularly remember. But I remember in high school the girls who would have a different crush on a boy every week, depending on whether that boy did anything nice to them. If that boy so much as held a door open for a girl, he was the next obsession for the next week. I've seen teenagers like this. She was so wild to be at home, to hear, to see, to be upon the spot, to share with Jane in the cares that must now fall wholly upon her. Yeah, you had a girlfriend like that. Oh no! Commitment is not in the wheelhouse for that kind of teenager. Upon the spot to share with Jane in the cares that must now fall wholly upon her. In a family so deranged, a father absent, a mother incapable of exertion, a requiring constant attendance, and though almost persuaded that nothing could be done for Lydia, her uncle's interference seemed of the utmost importance. Until he entered the room, the misery of her impatience was severe. Mr. and Mrs. Gardiner had hurried back in alarm, supposing by the servant's account that their niece had taken suddenly ill, but satisfying them instantly on that head, she eagerly communicated the cause of their summons, reading the 2 letters aloud, and dwelling on the postscript of the last with trembling energy. Though Lydia had never been a favourite with them, Mr. and Mrs. Gardiner could not but be deeply affected. Not Lydia only, but all were concerned in it, and after the first exclamations of surprise and horror, Mr. Gardiner readily promised every assistance in his power. Elizabeth, though expected no less, thanked him with tears of gratitude, and all 3 being acuted by one spirit, everything relating to their journey was speedily settled. They were to be off as soon as possible. "But what is to be done about Pemberley?" cried Mrs. Gardiner. "John told us Mr. Darcy was here when you sent for us. Was it so?" "Yes, I told him that we should not be able to keep our engagement. That is all settled." "What is all settled?" repeated the other, as she ran into the room to prepare. "And are they upon such terms as for her to disclose the real truth? Oh, that I knew how it was!" But wishes were in vain, or at best could serve only to amuse her in the hurry and confusion of the following hour. Had Elizabeth been at leisure to be idle, she would have remained certain that all employment was impossible due to one so wretched as herself. But she had her share of business as well as her aunt. Yeah, sorry. That would be dinner. And amongst the rest there were notes to be written to all their friends in Lambden, with false excuses for their sudden departure. An hour, however, saw the whole completed, and Mr. Gardiner, meanwhile, having settled his account at the inn, nothing remained to be done. but to go, and Elizabeth, after all the misery of the morning, found herself, in a shorter space of time than she could have supposed, seated in the carriage and on the long road to Longbourn. Oh my. Ew, children! The first pleasing earnest of their welcome. I have been thinking it over again, Elizabeth, said her uncle as they drove from the town, and really, upon serious consideration, I am much more inclined than I was to judge as your eldest sister does of the matter. It appears to me so very unlikely that any young man should form such a design against a girl who has by no means unprotected or friendliness, and who was actually staying in his colonel's family, that I am strongly inclined to hope the best. Oh, they just don't know! They don't know he's a pedo! He doesn't know! He's just like, oh, man could not be so base, could he not? He was staying at his superior's house, of course she was safe. No, she's not, Colonel. She's not. Could he expect that her friends would not step forward? Could he expect to be noticed again by the regiment? After such an affront to Colonel Foster, his temptation is not adequate to the risk. Do you really think so? Cried Elizabeth, brightening up for a moment. Narrator, the man could in fact be so base. Upon my word, said Mrs. Gardiner, I begin to be of your uncle's opinion. It is really too great a violation of decency, honour, and interest for him to be guilty of it. I cannot think so very ill of Wickham. Can you yourself, Lizzie, so wholly give him up as to believe him capable of it? Not perhaps of neglecting his own interest, but of every other neglect I believe him capable, if indeed it should be so. But I dare not hope it. Why should they not go to Scotland, if that had been the case? In the first place, replied Mr. Gardiner, there is no absolute proof that they are not gone to Scotland. Oh, but their removing from the chassis into a hackney coach is such a presumption, and besides, no traces of them were found on the Barnet Road. Well then, supposing them to be in London, going to Scotland from London, that's a hell of a way. Do they have trains yet? Because that would be a hell of a way without a train. Choo-choo. Well then, supposing them to be in London, they may be there, though for the purposes of concealment, for no more exceptional circumstance. It is not likely that money should be very abundant on either side, and it might strike them that they could be more economically, though less expediently, married in London than in Scotland. But why all the secrecy? Why any fear of detection? Why must their marriage be private? Oh, no, this is not likely. His most particular friend, you see, by Jane's account, was persuaded of his never intending to marry. Wickham will never marry a woman without some money. He cannot afford it. And what claims has Lydia? What attractions has she beyond youth, health, and good humour, that could make him, for her sake, forego every chance of befitting himself by marriage well? As to what restraint the apprehensions of disgrace in the corpse might throw on dishonourable elopement with her, I am not able to judge, for I know nothing of the effects that such a step might produce. But as to your other objection, I am afraid it will hardly hold good. Lydia has no brothers to step forward, and he might imagine from my father's behaviour, from his indolence, and the little attention he has ever seemed to give to what was going forward in the family, that he would do as little and think as little about it as any father could do in such a manner. So he's thinking that if he marries Lydia, he might get the estate, because then there would be a man in the inheritance pool. it's not a wrong old-timey thought. If this takes place in the same time as Back to the Future 3, then yes, they have trains. But can you think that Lydia is so lost to everything but to love of him, as to consent to live with him on any other terms than marriage? It does seem that it is most shocking indeed, replied Elizabeth with tears in her eyes, that a sister's sense of decency and virtue in such a point should admit of doubt, but really, I know not what to say. Perhaps I am not doing her justice, but she is very young. She has never been taught to think on serious subjects, and for the last half a year, nay, for 12th moon, she has been given up to nothing but amusement and vanity. She has been allowed to dispose of her time in the most idle and frivolous manner, and to adopt any opinions that came in her way. Since the Shire were first quartered in Meryton, nothing but love, flirtation, officers have been in her head. She has been doing everything in her power by thinking and talking on the subject to give greater, what shall I call it, susceptibility to her feelings, which are naturally lively enough. And we all know that Wickham has every charm of person and address that can captivate a woman. So, talking the day 1813 novels released, steam locomotives were in their infancy, so no rail lines. They didn't really start until another 20 years or so, based on a quick read. Okay, so there was no rails, so they were planning to go from London up to Scotland in a carriage? That would have taken days. 100% would have taken days. That's a long way. Specifically in terms of public rail lines going appreciable distances, yeah, so they definitely wouldn't have gotten up to Scotland with a train. No choo-choo power, only normal horses power. But you see that Jane, said her aunt, does not think so ill of Wickham as to believe him capable of the attempt. Of whom does Jane ever think ill? And who is there, whatever might be their former conduct, that she would believe capable of such an ill attempt, till it were proved against them? But Jane knows as well as I do what Wickham really is. We both know that he has been prolific in every sense of the word, that he has neither integrity nor honour, that he is false and deceitful as he is insinuating. Good thing we had jetpacks. I do indeed. And do you really know all this? Cried Mrs. Gardiner, whose curiosity as to the mode of her intelligence was all alive. I do indeed, replied Elizabeth, colouring. I told you the other day of his infamous behaviour to Mr. Darcy, and you yourself, when last Longbourn, heard in what manner he spoke of the man, who had behaved with such forbearance and liberality towards him. And there are other circumstances which I am not at liberty, which is not worth while to relate, but his lies about the whole Pemberley family are endless. From what he said of Miss Darcy, I was thoroughly prepared to see a proud, reserved, disagreeable girl, yet he knew to the contrary himself. He must know that she is amiable and unpretending, as we have found her. But does Lydia know nothing of this? Can she be ignorant of what you and Jane seem to know so well? Oh, yes. That is the worst of all. Till I was in Kent, and saw so much of both Mr. Darcy and his relation, Colonel Fitzwilliam, I was ignorant of the truth myself. And when I returned home, the Shire was to leave Meryton in a week or fortnight's time. As that was the case, neither Jane, to whom I related the whole, nor I, thought it necessary to make our knowledge public. For of what use could it apparently be to anyone, that the good opinion which all the neighbourhood had of him should be then overthrown? And even when it was settled that Lydia should go with Mrs. Foster, the necessity of opening her eyes to his character never occurred to me. That she could be in any danger from the deception he entered my head, that such a consequence as this should ensue, you may easily believe was far enough from my thoughts. When they all removed to Brighton, therefore, you had no reason, I suppose, to believe them fond of each other. Not in the slightest. I can remember no symptom of affection on either side, and had anything of the kind of perceptible. Sorry. I can remember no symptom of affection on either side, and had anything of the kind of been perceptible, you must be aware that ours is not a family in which it could be thrown away. When first he entered the corpse, she was ready enough to admire him, but so were we all. Every girl in or near Merton was out of her senses about him for the first 2 months, but he never distinguished her by any particular attention, and consequently, after a moderate period of extravagant and wild admiration, her fancy for him gave way, and others of the regiment, who treated her with more distinction, again became her favourites. It may be easily believed that, however little of novelty could be added to their fears, hopes, and conjectures on this interesting subject by its repeated discussion, no other could detain them from its long during the whole of the journey. Logically, I know you're in the UK, but my brain keeps forgetting that it's actually evening for you, not 2 p.m. on a Sunday. Yeah, it's 9:05 p.m. right now, which means we're an hour away from my grandma bedtime. Fixed there by the keenest of all anguish, self-reproach, she could not find no interval to ease or forgetfulness. They travelled as expeditiously as possible, and sleeping one night on the road, reached Longbourn by dinner-time the next day. It was a comfort to Elizabeth to consider that Jane could not have been wearied by long expectations. The little gardeners, attracted by the sight of a chassis, were standing on the steps of the house as they entered the paddock, and when the carriage drove up to the door, the joyful surprise that lightened up their faces and displayed itself over their whole bodies, and a variety of capers and frisks, was the first pleasing earnest of their welcome. Elizabeth jumped out, and, after giving each of them a hasty kiss, hurried into the vestibule, where Jane, who came running down the stairs from her mother's apartment, immediately met her. Elizabeth, as she affectionately embraced her, whilst tears filled her eyes of both, lost not a moment in asking whether anything had been heard of the fugitives. "Not yet," replied Jane, "but now my dear uncle is come, I hope everything will be well. Is my father in town?" "Yes, he went on Tuesday, as I wrote you word." "And have you heard from him often?" "We have heard only once. He wrote a few lines on Wednesday to say that he had arrived in safety, and to give me his directions, which I particularly begged him to do. He merely added that he should not write again till he had something of importance to mention." "And my mother, how is she? How are you all?" "My mother is tolerably well." The weird thing is them saying "my mother." Like, they're both sisters. I guess, again, old-timey things. We like old-timey things. Old-timey things are fun. But I like the differences. They both say "my mother," and we're not saying "is mother okay?" because they share a mother. They can both say mother to each other. Like, I could say to my brother, hey, is mum okay? No, not saying my mum, because that implies it's my mum and not his mum. But I guess that doesn't imply here for some reason. My mother doesn't imply only her mother. But is her mother wild? Strange grammar. My mother is tolerably well, I trust, though her spirits are greatly shaken. She is upstairs and will have great satisfaction in seeing you all. She does not yet leave her dressing room. Mary and Kitty, thank heavens, are quite well. And you? How are you? Cried Elizabeth. You look pale. How much must you have gone through? Her sister, however, assured her of her being perfectly well, and their conversation, which had been passing while Mr. and Mrs. Gardiner were engaged with their children, was now put to an end by the approach of the whole party. Jane ran to her uncle and aunt, and welcomed and thanked them both with alternate smiles and tears. When they were all in the drawing-room, the questions which Elizabeth had already asked were of course repeated by the others, and they soon found that Jane had no intelligence to give. The sanguine hope of good, however, which was benevolence of her heart suggested, had not yet deserted her. She still expected that it would all end well, and that every morning would bring some letter either from Lydia or her father to explain their proceedings and perhaps announce the marriage. Mrs. Bennet, whose apartment they all repaired after a few minutes' conversation together, received them exactly as might be expected, with tears and lamentations of regret, in vexations against the villainous conduct of Mr. Wickham, and complaints of her own sufferings and ill usage, blaming everybody but the person whose ill-judging indulgence and the errors of her daughter must be principally owning. Blaming everyone but herself for teaching her daughter to be as much of a gold digger as she is. If I had been able, said she, to carry my point in going to Brighton with all the family, this would not have happened. But my poor Lydia had nobody to take care of her. Why did the Fosters ever let her go out of their sight? I am sure there was some great neglect or other on their side, for she is not the kind of girl to do such a thing. Yes, she is, mother. Not the kind of girl to do such a thing. If she had been well looked after, I always thought they were very unfit to have charge of her, but I was overruled, as I always am. Poor dear child! And now here's Mr. Bennet gone away, and I know he will fight Wickham whenever he meets him, and then he will be killed. And what is to become of all of us? The Collinses will turn us out before he is cold in his grave, and if you are not kind to us, brother, I do not know what we shall do. Talk about catastrophizing. I got distracted and chased a butterfly. What happened? It's complicated. What happened was the baby sister has been whisked away by an older man, and we've got to find them, and they've gotten married, and it's terrible because he's basically a pedo. They all exclaimed against such terrific ideas, and Mr. Gardiner, after general assurances of his affection for her, and all the family told her that he meant to be in London the very next day, and would assist Mr. Bennet in every endeavour of recovering Lydia. Do not give way to useless alarm, added he. Though it is right to be prepared for the worst, there is no occasion to look on it as certain. It is not quite a week since they left Brighton, and a few days more we may gain some news of them, and till we know that they are not married, and have no design of marrying, do not let us give the matter over as lost. As soon as I get to town, I shall go to my brother, and make him come home with me to Gracechurch Street, and then we may consult together as to what is to be done. She got whisked away. Why are we smacking people with whisks now? Those are for striking cake, not batter. Ha 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 ha. Oh, my dear brother, replied Mrs. Bennet, that is exactly what I could most wish for. And now, do, when you get to town, find them out, wherever they may be. And if they are not married already, make them marry. But I thought we didn't want them to get married. Does elopement mean they boned in this? Is elopement not marrying in this? Is elopement they had a risky night and now they have to get married? Is that what that means? I'm not sure. As for the wedding clothes, do not let them wait for that, but tell Lydia that she shall have as much money as she chooses to buy them after they are married, and, above all things, keep Mr. Bennet from fighting. Tell him what a dreadful state I am, that I am frightened out of my wits, and have such tremblings, such flutterings all over me, such spasms in my side, and pains in my head, and such beatings at my heart, that I can get no rest by night nor day, and tell my dear Lydia not to give any directions about her clothes till she has seen me, for she does not know which are the best warehouses. Oh, brother, how kind you are! I know you will contrive it all. Jesus Christ, Mrs. Bennet. She's a peach, she is. She's an absolute bloody peach. One day I'm gonna take you literally and it not be a joke and you'll laugh like that. I mean, maybe. But that one was definitely a joke. An elopement is when your partner gets turned into a loaf of bread. That's when elopement comes from. That would be an elopement. I would not like to be in an elopement. I would rather if my partner got turned into something, I'd rather it be alive and something a little less tasty than bread, because I want exactly normal size Phantom. Bread is great, so you'd be tempted to eat them. If my fiance is gonna turn into something that wasn't human, I'd rather it be something that's not tasty or something I don't like to eat. So I don't think about eating it. You'd be a brioche roll smith. Yeah. Piece of candy. But but depends on the sweet. Depends on the sweet. There's some sweet. He could turn into some sweet. He could turn into something coffee flavored. That would be good. Caveat, I'd rather him stay a human. Mushy peas, but mushy peas ain't that bad though. Although I wouldn't really be tempted, so mushy peas is on the list. I like mushy peas, but like I'm not really tempted by them, so that works. But Mr. Gardiner, though he assured her again of his earnest endeavours in the cause, could not avoid recommending moderation to her as well in her hopes as her fears, and after talking with her in this manner till dinner was on the table, they left her to vent all her feelings on the housekeeper. That poor housekeeper, bless her soul, or his soul, I'm not sure. I bet you'd forget and eat him anyway. No, I'd never eat him. I'd put him in the most specialist container ever. He'd be labelled lovely. And I talked to him every day. Until I could find a wizard to turn him back. That would be the goal. And you wouldn't just leave him like that. We'd go on a journey to find a wizard to turn him back. Who attended in the absence of her daughters. You'd look crazy. I don't care. I love him. I look crazy. Talking to some mushy peas. If it's my fiance, I will talk to those mushy peas while I try find a cure for his sudden mushy peas. For his sudden existence as mushy peas. I love this theoretical. But I don't think he likes it. Mushy fiance. Though her brother and sister were persuaded that there was no real occasion for such seclusion from the family, they did not attempt to oppose it, for they knew that she had not prudence enough to hold her tongue before the servants, while they waited at table and judged it better than that one only of the household, and the one whom they could most trust, should comprehend all her fears and solitude on the subject. What if you were the piece of candy, though? Well, I can't really do anything if I got turned into it, because then I'm an inanimate object. What can I do about anything? All I can hope is that my fiancé treats me the same way I would treat him as mushy peas. I'd exist as a piece of candy, that is all. And I'd be a sweetie, not a piece of candy, because I ain't American. Also, I really hate, like, what kind of sweetie would I be, though? There's, like, candy's such a piece of candy. What does that even mean? There's so many sweets in the world. Pieces that could mean anything. Anything. It's like how you guys call old biscuits cookies when it's a specific. It's very silly. Very silly. Specifics, people. Specifics. What was I up to? Yeah. In the dining room, they were soon joined by Mary and Kitty, who had been too busily engaged in their separate apartments to make their appearance before. Once one came from her books and the other from her toilette. The faces of both, however, were tolerably calm, and no change was visible in either, except that the loss of her favourite sister, or the anger which she had herself incurred in the business, had given something more of a fretfulness than usual to the accents of Kitty. As for Mary, she was mistress enough of herself to whisper to Elizabeth, with a countenance of grave reflection, as soon as they were seated at the table, "This most unfortunate affair, and will probably be much talked of, but we must stem the tide of malice, and pour into the wounded bosoms of each other the balm of sisterly consolation." I'd be a fruit salad or blackjacks. I'd rather be a fruit salad. Blackjacks is basically just licorice in it. I'd much rather be a fruit salad. Fruit salads are tasty. Seeing all your hand gestures is so great, and it makes your reactions better. Oh my god. Yeah. Coffee flavored pizza Tootsie Roll. I don't even like Tootsie Rolls, and you don't like coffee, so we don't even have Tootsie Rolls here, so I think maybe I've seen a Tootsie Roll when I've gone to America when I was little, but yeah, I don't even, like, what is a Tootsie Roll like a, I've seen, like, is that like the cake with the cream in the middle? Is that a Tootsie Roll? Like an eclair kind of thing, but not as fancy. That's a Twinkie. Oh, okay. Tootsie Roll, chewy flake chocolate. Oh, that sounds interesting. Tootsie Roll is like chocolate flavored wax. What the hell? Actually, that's a really good description of that cake I was just telling you about. Maybe that was a Tootsie Roll. Maybe that was a Tootsie Roll. Maybe that's what that was, that cake that I was telling you about on holiday. Maybe that was a Tootsie. Maybe that was the same kind of Tootsie Roll. It wasn't quite waxy, but like, it wasn't far off. It didn't get stuck in my teeth though. You may hear my fiance in the background. just so you're aware. I'm gonna quickly close this door a minute. Yeah, I closed this door. We're good. I closed my door, but I don't have a door in my office. Anyway. Where were we? Ah, yes. Sisterly consolation. I believe you said your fiance isn't in position streaming, but it would be funny if we had to perform your actions as 3D brownie while you spoke. That would be funny. Then perceiving in Elizabeth no inclination of replying, she added, "Unhappy as the event must be for Lydia, we may draw from it this useful lesson, that loss of virtue in a female is irretrievable, that one false step involves her in endless ruin, that her reputation is no less brittle than it is beautiful, and that she cannot be too much guarded in her behaviour towards the undeserving of the opposite sex." I don't even know what that means. Could probably sit and translate it, but I'm not gonna. Let's see, how close are we to the end of the chapter? We're pretty far. Oh wait, now we're good now. Now I have to figure out what the heck I was. Aha, here we go. Elizabeth lifted her eyes in amazement, but was too much oppressed to make any reply. Mary, however, continued to console herself with such kind of moral extractions from the evil before them. I guess she's basically trying to make herself feel better about the situation by going, yes, this happened, but I guess we'll learn from it. Everything will be fine. But I just looked down and I realized that it may or may not be time to end the stream, unfortunately. Thank you everyone for coming! We only have 25% more of this book left. We're on 75%. And we were on 69 before, so we read 6% this stream. So that's not too bad. We should be able... And considering we spent 20 minutes going through books that I have read on holiday and stuff, then theoretically, we should be able to get through it. I don't know. Let's do some maths. I need my calculator. No. Does anyone else open their calendar sometimes when they're looking for their calculator? Because it has numbers on and my brain is like, I need the app with the numbers. And then I end up opening the calculator. 9. No, we didn't read 9. We read 6. Or maybe 25 divided by 6. So to theoretically take about 4 more streams to get through this. Underserving of the opposite. No, Briny, that's modern language. Sex is not modern language. Sex has been in the dictionary for a long time. Good readings always best. Thank you. Thank you for the stream. Anyways, I've got one of my little brothers reading Moon Girl. He didn't instantly put it down this time. Yay! That's wonderful. Thanks for the stream. It was fun. No problem, guys. Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, everyone in chat. Thank you to anyone who looked. And thank you to anyone who watches the VOD. I do appreciate you being here. It is so much more fun to stream when people are around. So I appreciate you being around. But I do appreciate VODs too. You know, just generally, you know, appreciate the people who support. And if you would like to be one of those people who support, I would highly appreciate it if you are on YouTube. If you could leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. It's been really funny recently. Because when I wasn't streaming, when I was on holiday, I got like six subs while I wasn't streaming. And now suddenly I'm streaming again and I've lost subs. So I just think it's funny. I don't take it personally much anymore. I used to be really sad when I lost subs sometimes, but I don't really care as much anymore. Not unless there's like a really big down spike and then I'm just like, Anya. But it's just ironic. I come back and then people are like, now, unsub. Now, we don't like her really. I liked the idea of it, but now she's back. Unsub. Yeah, I couldn't keep all those sock puppet accounts up. Yeah, it's all those bots. Bot. But anyway, this made me giggle. Yeah. And if you are on Twitch, that number didn't move. I would appreciate it if you would follow the channel. Yeah, British unsubscribed. Not that it's not in the descriptions all the time, but potentially. Potentially. And last but not least, if you would like to support this VTuber in doing what she does, and funding many wonderful things, and making sure she can continue doing this for funsies all the time, then you can do that multiple ways. You can get YouTube membership, where you can get emotes, exclusive streams, Discord channel, and merch discounts. You can get Patreon, which is very, very similar. You can get pretty much all that, but you also get free books and a short story every single month. A brand new short story. Speaking of which, I do need to write September's short story, but you know, I'll get on that. And it is a Kofi, where you can get me to draw a emote for you. And you can also look in the shop there for small audiobooks. If you just miss my voice and you want it telling you a story, then that's what the Kofi shop's for. Go have a look in there. And then there's the merch store, last but not least, where you can get ebooks. First edition copies of books I've written, bookmarks, key earrings, t-shirt, notebook, soft pillow, and emote stickers. La la la. Click all of them below. Down. It doesn't really point down, bro. I can point down with my thumb. Down. I will see you guys next time. I'll probably be streaming tomorrow. We'll probably be doing a bit more game dev because I did want that game to be out by October. And we're getting very close to October! So I'm going to be doing everything we can to get it out then. I'm probably going to be working pretty solidly outside of stream. But that is tomorrow me's problem. Today's me's problem is saying goodbye and going to bed. Good night, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. I had fun. I hope you had fun. This has been Brandon Smith, Life and the Forbidden Library. Goodbye.